It was a stifling night in Port Elizabeth when the security vans rolled through the townships and into the history books. In the 1970s, South Africa was a country carved by law into two systems: one white, one everything else. Stephen Bantu Biko, known to the world as Steve Biko, had become the most dangerous thing to that system: an idea. As founder and intellectual heart of the Black consciousness movement, author of I Write What I Like, and a galvanizing leader of Black student politics, Biko taught pride when apartheid demanded submission. By 1977, the government's security branch regarded him as a political threat that must be neutralized. On August 18, 1977, Biko was arrested in Port Elizabeth during a widespread roundup. The official paperwork named routine detention under the Internal Security Act. What followed was anything but routine. For weeks he was interrogated, moved between stations, and according to medical and witness evidence later assembled, repeatedly assaulted. Then began a deliberate sequence that turned a political detention into an international scandal. Biko was placed in the back of a police transport van and driven hundreds of kilometers to Pretoria. On arrival, he was a shell, unconscious, with catastrophic brain injuries. Doctors at Pretoria's police hospital recorded skull fractures and massive brain swelling. The security branch provided a string of explanations: that Biko had injured himself during an escape attempt, that he had starved himself on a hunger strike, that his condition resulted from a fall. Experts who later examined the autopsy and testimony found those accounts inconsistent with the injuries. Pathologist Jonathan Gluckman concluded that the head trauma was the consequence of repeated blows and rough handling while in custody. The horror was compounded by what followed: delay, obfuscation, and bureaucratic indifference. Authorities moved slowly, shipments of records were incomplete, and officers gave conflicting statements. The state narrative fractured under forensic scrutiny, but the justice that might have followed did not. An inquest did establish that Biko had died from brain injuries sustained while in apartheid police custody. Still, no effective criminal prosecutions were mounted against the officers who had beaten and transported him. That gap between truth and accountability exposed a wider conspiracy. Not a single night's violence, but an institutional program to silence opposition. The security branch had a modus operandi: detain, interrogate, punish, and then conceal. Medical neglect and carefully crafted lies about the circumstances of Biko's injuries were not accidents. They were tools in a system that normalized brutality and manufactured deniability. The goal was chillingly simple: remove a voice without creating a martyr. Instead, the state's attempt to erase Biko made a global icon. When news of his death leaked, outrage spread across South Africa and the world. Students, journalists, clergy, and foreign governments rallied. The death magnified anti-apartheid pressure and stripped away any pretense that the regime was merely lawful governance. Biko's funeral in Ginsburg Township and his posthumous influence stoked resistance, his writings and image fueling the very movement the state sought to smother. 2 decades later, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission would return to Biko's death as emblematic of apartheid's crimes. The TRC's investigations reconstructed the web of command, the security branch's practices, and the cover-ups that followed. Their hearings laid the moral and historical blame at the door of the security apparatus. The law finally named the obvious: a man had been killed by agents of the state, and the state had tried to hide it. This was a crime that was more than a single act of violence. It was a deliberate institutional strategy: to criminalize dissent by legal means, to brutalize bodies in secret, and to bury the truth beneath bureaucracy and falsehood. Steve Biko's death exposed that conspiracy to the light, and in the decades since his passing, his ideas have proved more durable than the machinery that tried to silence them. Where the vans once rolled under cover of night, his words continue to be spoken in daylight.